Hi there, I'm Adam Kivas and this is my novel. Listen. Lucy Knight and Glenn Chase arrive at another crime scene. It is an American job center building. It is morning. It is an ordinary working day. People are still on the street. Who would have been either attending some courses in the job center or who would have been on the way to their works. The streets are filled with onlookers. What is going on is in everyone's face written. Lucy gets out of the car. Glenn is still grudging, and he moves ahead, struts ahead grudgingly after the scene in the FBI director's office. He has not spoken to Lucy. Lucy is thoughtful. Again, she is crippled with the fear that he could act out and act indiscreetly and unprofessionally on the crime scene. And now even more eyes are resting on her. She can feel all the eyes on her, that she's been gazed at, that she's looked at, stared at, and evaluated. And again, she can get a faith, strength, and struts into the American Job Center building. After the entry, there's a long hall. A long hall which stretches into the depths of the building. When no one stands in those halls, it may look ridiculous why there are so long halls. But during rush hour, Lucy assumes that probably a lot of people stand in queue in front of these different rooms, trying to improve their career. Some of them are looking for jobs, need help in applications, or are just desperate, need financial support, and so on. The average American is actually not attending these job centers. It is rather those who are unemployed, who hit, if you want, rock bottom, who cannot help themselves by their own means. Lucy walks along these long halls. It is an ordinary public building in America. The public buildings, they are somehow crumbling. They're old, need immediate renovation. Not enough money is spent on public buildings. And you can see that. You pretty much realize that this building was probably erected in the 70s and 80s. And superficial maintenance kept it up for all these years. But not more. No more room was added. Even though there are long halls, even though the architects and the constructors in their foresight saw that probably a lot of people will attend and visit these public buildings, so they created ample space. But however, they couldn't have fathomed that their estimation of how many people eventually would enter these buildings, they couldn't have it. So the modest estimation does not apply with reality. And thereafter, one notices there was no effort made for the American people, because as it seems, this public building, probably from the 70s and 80s, was meant to improve the lives of ordinary Americans. And thereafter, without the renovation, without anything that would have kept this public building not only going but extended it and applied it and made it compatible with the public growth and the need. This will seems to be missing here. And almost it seems that this public building is a relic of the past, once where politicians and people cared for Americans and the ordinary Americans and were eager to help them to get on their feet so that no one would be left behind. This entire public building, the interior, does not only look worn down, no, it as well as conveys a feeling of depression, of disillusion. In the end, one is alone. In the end, no one really cares about you anymore. In the end, it is only a fancy. And then you stand alone in your world. Probably some will appreciate this, will see to it, will assume that life without state interference is what they have always dreamed of, thought of. Of course, these are mostly people who do not need anyone to interfere in their lives, who can manage due to their social environment, their own lives. But there are many who would need support. There are many who would need public help to get on their feet, to get their decent lives without any welfare checks. So this is a building of the past, once people cared for each other. Lucy can already see some forensics. They're bustling downstairs. See, she approaches a concrete floor. This is one of those staircases which are common in public buildings. They are of concrete, massive, broad. Seems to be as if life, in a way, as if they would be supportive of your career ambitions, of your life ambitions, massive enough to carry everyone. Lucy and Glenn descend the stairs, and they see forensics all around. They show their badges. One forensic approaches Lucy and Glenn and starts introducing the victim. Doreen Vault, 37. She was strangled. She lived alone. She had no relationship to anyone. She lived in an department in a living complex. That's all we know so far. Lucy thinks about it again. This is another loner. 2 of the previous victims were as well living alone, were as well detached from social gathering. Doreen Vault was an employee of the job center. She met a lot of people every day, but yet she lived alone. Apparently no friends, no boyfriend, no partner. So how does the killer get to these people? The job center is a great opportunity to see and meet and visit a lot of people without actually losing one's social mask, because someone who meets a lot of people every day in the end will not be able to remember all their faces. Rather, one gets submerged in the flood of new faces, in the flood of different personalities. It is even hardly possible that one even remembers and notices all the different names one is dealing with. So the job center, if the killer uses this to have access to the victims, then it is probably a great opportunity for him to make contact without actually being recognized. Lucy looks around in the public building. She can immediately scrutinize and see that there are no cameras in this public building, as if no one would ever expect that someone would detonate a bomb or that someone would in a way threaten this building. No one even bothered. It is not that important. So it will be difficult to find the killer. But this job center could be a great chance for him to make contact with possible victims. Lucy looks at the dead body of Doreen Vault. She sees that she sits on a chair. She was strangled. Doreen was strangled, and again it looks like that she did not fight her attacker, as if she was being drugged like those previous victims too. How did the killer get her to drink this sedative? Those previous 2 victims had residues of a sedative drug in their stomachs. There was no stench used, nothing that would have surprised the victim, quite the contrary. So the killer probably gave something to drink to those victims. But normally you would not take a beverage from someone you don't know, because there are some stories everyone knows, especially women. So you would be cautious not to take anything from them. So how does the killer gain their trust? And additionally, maybe why do people trust him? Or he could have mixed the sedative drugs the sedative drug into their food. But this would have mean that he has special access to their private homes, to where they are. Lucy again looks at the victim, and again it is filled with and riddled with symbolism. She immediately sees that the victim's eyes were duct taped, her eyelids were duct taped on her forehead, and that her entire body faces the stairs. She is underneath the stairs, sits on a chair, is naked, and she wears shoes. Lucy tries to separate all this information in spheres and then gradually wants to understand the entire image. Firstly, she starts to analyze the staircase. These stairs of the public buildings made in the 70s and 80s, they are of solid concrete. The treads, these are the parts where some puts his foot on in order to ascend and descend the stairs. They are broad, they are very comfortable. The risers, these are the spaces between the stairs, between the treads. They are free and missing, which means that one can see through the stairs. So if someone is underneath the stairs, he or she can actually at least see the foot of the person who ascends or descends the stairs. So you can look through it. No one can actually hide underneath the stairs without being noticed. And third, that the wall stringer is missing, so that the concrete treads are fixed directly to the wall. These are public stairs. And the victim, her entire body has been turned purposefully underneath the stairs and towards the stairs, so that she sees who ascends and descends the stairs. And her eyes, they were duct taped on her forehead. Her eyelids with duct tape were fixed on her forehead. They were prized open so that she sees who ascends and descends the stairs. Lucy then sees that the victim does not wear any jewelry. She looks around for her clothes and sees that in the corner her clothes were tossed carelessly in the corner. They lie next to a desk, an ordinary desk you find in public buildings, and on the desk is a white sheet of paper, a white sheet of paper and a pen, nothing else. They do not lie there in order meaning they are not carefully placed there, so that the pen is in exact proportion to the white sheet. they seem to be not symbolic important, only utilities, but yet part of the scene. Lucy immediately sees that because all her jewelry and everything was stripped off of Doreen, it is no coincidence that she wears shoes. The shoes are some sort of weird. They do not fit the entire image of it all. And in addition, an acid floor soap was poured over the victim. And in some places of her skin, it has seared actually her skin. So was she ointed. And Lucy turns the victim and sees that on the belly of the victim there is an upside down cross, a cross which you would mostly see in cults or in satanic rites. But this is a red cross. It is a Petrine cross. It is upside down. It is on her belly, on her womb. Lucy thinks about all this and how this may add together, what the sense of this is, and how the killer sees the world, the meaning of it all. The ascension or the descension of the staircase could be an indication for life. A stair or ladder, for that matter, is that you climb up. There's some sort of indicate a growth, personal growth, or a spiritual growth. Ascending is always associated with a spiritual growth toward heaven. The ascending of Jesus towards heaven, always you move up, and the hell is always down, descending. So this means while ascending is always positive, personal and spiritual growth, as well as it always entails a descension, personal loss or incapability, stray from the right path. So this is always combined. You have to see ascension always with descension, with the possibility that it is not possible to rise in your life, because failure in life is always present with success. You could possibly fail. You could possibly not succeed. And the victim's eyes are forced open so that she should see, that she should observe life, observe spiritual enlightenment, so that one has a role model like Jesus who was the shepherd and who was the role model for everyone, and whose life became a role model for everyone. Jesus who sacrificed himself for the sin of all humanities. So this is very important, and this then helped him to ascend, reach a new level in life. And humans who follow, Christians who follow Jesus, see this ascension as something positive. One would assume that sacrifice and taking the sins of all humanity on oneself then helped him to ascend to heaven. And the victim was supposed to see this. And she's naked. Naked in that sense that she is stripped of her attachment to life, that she's naked, that she cannot hide behind those clothes. This is her body. This is who she is. She cannot cover up. So being naked may be, in one hand, be considered as being demeaned and degraded, but as well as it means that one faces the borders and the personal restriction of one's body. Personal restriction means that someone, if he does not feel ugly, if he or she does not feel beautiful, rather considers herself as ugly and had covered up her body all these lives in order not to face this ugliness, this uncomfortable ugliness. She then strips naked in order to face her fears, in order to be confronted with them and make their peace with it, with those bodily faults, make your peace with the thought that you are not perfect. And this thought gets additional support through the floor soap, cleaning soap, as if it would be an ointment, as if this would be a new clothes, her new cloth that she is wearing. This revelation, the revelation of a new spirit, that she went beyond that she was enlightened, that she stripped off the masks and the wrong beliefs and her fears. So then being naked is not about humiliation anymore. It is about growth, personal growth, leaving behind the false, pretentious life. But she wears shoes. This is bothering Lucy, because shoes, this could be an detachment, could be an indication that one is not attached to the soul. There is still a barrier between oneself and God's earth, from where one descends. This is God's earth, therefore is the footer, the step, the first step, which one leaves behind while one ascends towards heaven or ascends in life. So maybe it could be an indication that one still needs protection from the filthy human earth. Even though it is God's soil, yet the devil sets foot on the earth. The devil walks among the living, more walks among human beings. And every step he makes poisons the earth, so that one needs protection from it. One needs to protect their feet. But as well as those shoes, they could be an indication for a journey, an upcoming journey. a spiritual journey. It is still the ground floor where the victim is, and that she is, and that her eyes are prized open. Could be an indication that she should watch, that she should see that this is the beginning of the journey, her spiritual journey, that something new is about to start. And for this, she needs her shoes to prepare herself mentally for this new part of her life. And then there is the Petrine cross on her belly. According to one legend, the saint Peter, who was condemned to death by Nero, opposed being crucified as Jesus. He thought that he wasn't worthy of dying the same death as Jesus. So he according to this legend, let the cross turn upside down. So the cross in Christian religion is an indication of humility. The upside down cross, the Petrine cross, is an indication of humility. But the cross is on her belly, on her womb, where new life starts. This is very vital. This is important. The place of the cross is crucial. So what is her belly, her womb? It is the possibility to start a new life, to give life, to descend with life, to be, if you want, the bearer of life. Some would even say that one can then be equal with God or with any saint whatsoever, because women are able to give life. But all this cross and so on means as well as sacrifice. Sacrifice in that sense, Jesus sacrificed himself. He sacrificed himself for the sin of all others. But he got eternal life in exchange, so that people get something for a sacrifice. A better life, eternal life, immortality is what one strives for. And how can someone become immortal? Either through in heaven, but as well as in this world. One can become immortal in the narrow-minded human thinking sphere. And this immortality can be accomplished through children, so that the human line or the lineage of one's family is being maintained, continues, and therefore one gets immortal or can reach immortality through descendants. But like a spiritual immortality, even the mortal immortality is bound on conditions, like humility, so that one condition to reach this mortal immortality, this human immortality, would be that one has to be humble. Humble to bear children and therefore ascend. But how is one humble? And this needs to be learned. That's why probably her eyes are fixed on the stairs, so that the victim or that the person who seeks immortality, who wishes immortality in what form whatsoever, needs to watch others, needs to observe others in order to be able to emulate them, understand them and emulate them. Lucy looks at the desk behind the victim, the white sheet of paper and the pen. They seem part of this whole. A white sheet of paper, it could mean that through this new beginning, through this new ointment, and one's soul, which has been relieved, so that the past, the heathen life, was left behind, so that one is now an unwritten sheet of white paper. One is relieved of all his sins, and a new chapter of one's life has started. A completely new chapter, which was not written on so far, which is a blank space. It could be therefore an opportunity to start new, to forget the past, to forget one's sin. It could be as well as a new beginning because of the pen next to the blank white sheet of paper, where one writes down his future. So the future, which needs to be planning, the wishes one writes down, like one writes down for the Santa Claus what one wants for Christmas. Those intentions one has to improve their lives. All is possible. So all is possible because one is living in the future, not in the past anymore. All the sins, all the lives, all the life one has lived before is now left behind, is in the past now. Now, with this blank sheet of paper, one stands in the future. Only the future is important, and how one will conduct themselves in the future. What wishes one has. So the blank sheet of paper might be for some associated with emptiness, with void, with destruction. Because one is forced to start anew. But for others, a blank sheet of paper could be a relief so that one is able to start anew. Forget the past mistakes, and be able to write one's life anew. Write one's destiny anew. Write our own wish list which is not bothered by the past anymore, by past worries, and that if you wish something, they necessarily entail relief of past worries. No, the blank sheet of paper enables you to think about life new, without the emotional weight of the previous life you live. It is a new beginning, and this again fits with the victim being drenched in floor soap. are being forced to watch, see, observe the ascension and the descension. Because not everything in life is important, is about success. You learn as well as about unsuccessful people. See them, understand their faults, understand their sins. And she's naked. So that she's stripped off all her earthly attachments, so that she's able to look at herself in a new way, look at life in a new way. This means that there was a past history of this. So there was a life before it dawned to her that she has to strip off the life she lived up to that point. The moment when she realized that her life was probably meaningless, or that she lived a false life, a life of pretense. And then thereafter she discovered a new life, or how life really is. This is when some religions, people who have been living life up to a certain point carefree, they were not struggling through life because they were well protected. They lived in an illusion. Then thereafter something happens, a catalyst, and they then see life in a new light. How life really is. That they did not assume and presume that life would be in this form. Especially life on earth is always about suffering, about the human mind losing himself from the righteous path, being not able to free himself all by himself. No, he needs guidance, he needs spiritual guidance. And therefore, he needs spiritual guidance to not only live with the suffering, endure suffering, but to be able to overcome suffering on this earth, and to reach higher spirituality and to reach purpose. He needs to believe in something. And this belief then gives him purpose. And this is then the natural procedure. In the beginning, someone lived a carefree life. This is the first phase. Then something happened. A catalyst. One falls out of heaven. One falls out of the world which one assumed up to that point. That would be a paradise. This is the very form of the Genesis. In the beginning, Adam and Eve lived a carefree life. Without worries, they were living in God's garden. But then something happened. They were coaxed by the devil, or they rather discovered desire and the will to break out of confinement. God had given Adam and Eve a free will, but he had built it on a condition that they should not eat from the tree of sin. But they did. So this was the original sin, the first sin which threw humanity out of heaven. And from that point on, humanity was doomed to to redeem their sins, to accomplish or regain the entry to heaven. Humanity had to prove themselves. And all ascension pretty much starts with this feeling, with this pathway. In the beginning, one assumed that life is beautiful. Then something happens, a catalyst. One discovers something. And this new discovery is life changing. One looks at life in a different way. Thirdly, then this discovery has a consequence. A consequence one has not thought about. One gets miserable. One has to live a wretched life like Adam and Eve, who had to live on earth from that point on. And then one understands his own plight, his own misery, and one wants to overcome this suffering, this wretched life, in order to reach higher enlightenment, in order to reach God's paradise again. But your pathway is marred with obstacles and necessary sacrifices, like trials in which you discover yourself, you discover the true meaning. And one trial would be that the human mind, or that the Redeemer, the repentant believer, makes his peace with him being a human being, with him being mortal, with him making a peace with who he is, what he has been given, the body he has been given, the belief he has been given. That one makes his peace with it. So that one strips himself from all pretense and sees himself in a new light, in a new mirror, in a new spiritual mirror. And this indicates the readiness for the journey ahead, for the spiritual journey ahead, the ascension, the first step towards immortality. Of course, the path can be, if you want, an intersection. Either one strives for immortal ascension, so that one reaches God's paradise, or one strives for mortal ascension. One is able to maintain and nourish the lineage, human lineage, and therefore in the human mind reaches immortality. But this is not really immortality. It is only a humbug in human mind. Lucy again sees over and scrutinizes the crime scene. The entire crime scene is about someone learning about life. It is as if someone is forced to observe, to understand. It is, if you want, a pre-education. Even though Doreen was 37, she apparently didn't need it. Some ground basic education, how to ascend, how to understand life. Basics to help her to come clean with her life, to get and accomplish what she strived for. Her gaze indicates that. But what does the killer mean with that? All the previous two victims, they have nothing in common. And now the third, Doreen, they seem all detached. There is no connection between them. Every victim had in its way their own struggles, had their own lives. There is no visible pattern, only an assumption that it is the same killer. But how these victims are connected is not visible. And it is a mystery for Lucy. How they end up, how they act together. What one should think of it, and how should one put these victims and the symbols together.